All right, well, welcome everyone. I think you all know me by now, but again, just for purposes of our recording and anyone that may view this at a later time, my name is Jordan Langer, and I am the Alumni Relations Officer for the School of Nursing. I have a few housekeeping notes as we get started today, but I first wanted to bring our attention to our land acknowledgement that we have started to use as a standard for all of our events when we do meet together. So this is our shared future plaque that was installed on Bascom Hill actually 2 years ago here. And it just brings to the attention that the land that the University of Wisconsin-Madison sits upon is ancestral Ho-Chunk land. And so I think it's just a good moment to recognize the land that we, as well as the School of Nursing sits upon, was taken from the Ho-Chunk people, but yet their tribe and their people are thriving today. So again, just wanted to reflect on that before we get started today. So just a few Zoom tips and reminders. So I think we're all muted today, but just know you're welcome to put in any comments or raise your hand. There's a raise your hand feature. There will be recording of this, like I said, afterwards, just for anyone that would like it. We'll get it added onto our Class of 72 webpage as well. But just know that there are a few things that we want to go over as well. So I'm super excited that we're all together. I feel like we've been celebrating this for several months now, but it's all come together really nicely. After our formal remarks, we're going to just continue to move into a social hour and reintroduce ourselves to anyone that might join us later. But I did want to again thank MJ for being here. She's one of our current student ambassadors in the second year in our traditional BSN program. So again, any technical questions, she's our backup today. So it's really my privilege and honor to work with Badger nurses every day in a variety of ways. So thank you all for serving on the committee through the various tasks that we've done since the beginning of the year. It seems like it's been longer. Some days it feels like it has gone by so quickly. So again, all of you, thank you so much for your work for making this such an impactful event and connecting with all of our classmates near and far. So I'd now like to welcome Dorinda Cartier, a class of 1972 graduate, who will conduct our moment of silence and lead us into that section of our program today. And so Dorinda, make sure you're unmuted here.
Thank you. Thanks, Jordan. As we begin our celebration, let us remember our classmates and colleagues that are no longer with us. I want us to reflect on our shared experience we had during our nursing education and the memories that bind us together. They touched our lives just as we touched theirs. We have included the Nightingale tribute on the screen to honor our classmates who have passed. Nursing is a calling, a lifestyle, a way of life. Nurses here today honor our colleagues who are no longer with us and their life as a nurse. They are not remembered by their years as a nurse, but by the difference they made during those periods, by stepping into people's lives, by special moments. They were there. When a calming, quiet presence was all that was needed, they were there. In the excitement and miracle of birth or in the mystery and loss of life, they were there. When a silent glance could uplift a patient, family member, or friend, they were there. At those times when the unexplainable needed to be explained, they were there. When the situation demanded a swift foot and a sharp mind, they were there. When a gentle touch, a firm push, or an encouraging word was needed, they were there. In choosing the best one from a family's thank you box of chocolates, they were there. To witness humanity, its beauty in good times and bad, without judgment, they were there. To embrace the woes of the world willingly and offer hope, they were there. And now that it is time to be at the greater one's side. They are there. Let us take a moment to pause and reflect. Thank you all. Let us continue to keep our classmates on our hearts and minds as we celebrate together and long after we conclude our reunion events. I would now like to welcome my classmate and friend, Linda Kautza Croce. Linda?
Thank you for leading us, Brenda, in that special and important moment. I don't believe looking at the screen there was a dry eye among us, and so sad that so many have already passed. Hello, I'm Linda Croce, and I'm thrilled to be sharing this time with all of you. And it's my honor to introduce our UW School of Nursing Dean, Dr. Linda Scott. Dr. Linda Scott is the Dean of the University of Wisconsin Madison School of Nursing. She was appointed its 8th Dean of the school in July of 2016, where she provides direction and leadership in educating the nurses for the future of care, strengthening the school's research enterprise, and forging many positive partnerships to improve health outcomes. As a leading scholar in sleep and health services research, her research on workforce issues has influenced the direction of health policy formation as the nation struggles to provide patient-centered quality health care amidst a significant nursing workforce shortage. Dr. Scott has also led diversity efforts across academic degrees and curricula, such as the implementation of a holistic admissions review process, a strategy to enhance the diversity of the nursing workforce and improve patient outcomes by having a nursing profession that mirrors the population that we serve. Dr. Scott, in addition to leading our beloved University of Wisconsin School of Nursing, has assumed the role of President-elect of the American Academy of Nursing in October of 2021. In addition, she is a fellow of the National Academies of Practice and a member of Sigma Theta Tau Honor Society for Nursing. And through December of 2022, Dr. Scott serves as the Associate Editor for Nursing Outlook, the official journal of the American Academy of Nursing. And if this was not enough to keep her busy, in June of 2022, she accepted a nomination to become a member of the National Academies of Science and Engineering and Medicine's Board of Healthcare Services. Dr. Scott earned her PhD in nursing from the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, her master's degree from Grand Valley State at Allendale, Michigan, and her undergraduate degree from Michigan State University in East Lansing. I am incredibly honored to serve on the School of Nursing's Board of Visitors for the past many years. The script actually says I'm supposed to say the number of years, but I don't know. What I do know is that in 2008, I was asked by Linda Scott's predecessor, Catherine May, to lead the capital campaign for our now much beloved Sidney Scott Cooper Hall. We are incredibly lucky to have Dean Scott leading our school, and we are deeply honored to have her with us today. Please join me in welcoming Dean Linda Scott.
Well, thank you, Linda. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your introduction. And I also want to take the opportunity to thank you for your time and expertise that you share with the school through your service on our Board of Visitors. I keep thinking about term limits, and I think yours is, you have an indefinite status on our Board of Visitors right now. So thank you for all you do. And hello and welcome, class of 1972. It has been indeed my pleasure getting to know a number of you. And so while I'm speaking to a few of you now, I hope that others will have the opportunity to share in this presentation. And it is indeed my honor to be your dean. Before I begin my prepared remarks, I do want to acknowledge the tribute that Dorinda provided, recognizing the members of your class who are no longer with us. It's important to affirm that they remain in your treasured memories and as a part of the school's history. Thank you for including this remembrance so that we are inclusive of all who were members of the class of 1972. And Dorinda, you and I had a conversation about this and about how this providing this tribute might be challenging for you. And you did a wonderful job, and it was a wonderful tribute. So thank you very much. So let me just share that this is only the second time that the School of Nursing has held a nursing-focused event as a part of the 50th anniversary celebrations that are held by campus. We are grateful to last year's new half-century members, the class of 1971, who suggested that we do it. And you will not find it surprising that our alumni relations officer, Jordan Langer, did not have to be asked twice to do this. As you know by now, Jordan has a deep appreciation for the contributions of our graduates who have made to the profession and for the people who have created the school's legacy. Jordan also feels so connected to our alumni that she relays your stories with genuine fondness and pride, as if she had witnessed them herself. I share Jordan's appreciation and gratitude for your legacy and memories. I enjoyed being a part of the 50 reunion events held last week, our breakfast, and at dinner, where I had a chance to visit with several of you and your peers. One of the greatest pleasures of being dean is connecting with you as alumni, classmates, and nurse leaders. So thank you for taking the time to reconnect with each other and the school through these and other activities. I too would like to recognize the class of 72 committee members for their time that they've spent preparing this reunion. So thank you to Dorinda, Ronnie, Karen, Nancy Hines Glazer, Deborah Reitman Judd, Bonnie, Linda Prochi, and Kathy Schneider. So thank you again for all you've done to make this event a reality. And your commitment for creating programming that is both substantive and social. And of course, Jordan, I thank you for your enthusiastic support and effort you have given to this through your role as liaison on behalf of the school. I know that you have enjoyed getting to know the members of the class of 72 as well. So the UW-Madison School of Nursing, class of 1972, you are spirited, dedicated, and accomplished. You are rightly proud of the role you played in advancing health in the field of nursing. Your careers have spanned a time of incredible change in our world and in the nursing profession. You were forerunners as you entered the workforce with baccalaureate degrees, and many of you went on to pursue advanced or terminal degrees. While your nursing education was greatly needed in healthcare settings, you often had to create your own space to use it. And in doing so, you strengthened healthcare by adding to the voice and expertise of nurse leadership. Maybe this is why many of you gravitated towards mentorship roles, became nurse executives and educators, paved new paths throughout your careers, and led as advocates in your communities. This shared experience and commitment may be also why you returned to the School of Nursing and to each other 50 years later. As Dean of the school that was so informative for you, I am proud to welcome all of you to the Half Century Club. I know that the School of Nursing not only shaped your lives, it also prepared you to change lives and health across Wisconsin, throughout the country, and beyond. You embody our aspirations. I hope that your strong sense of connection and love for the school includes knowing that we are educating the next generation of Badger nurses. You can believe in them. They too are prepared to follow your lead and build on your legacy. And you have MJ here as an exemplar of that. As we near our 100th year milestone, we see that the legacy of our past is also a foundation for building what is next. As a class, you have chosen to be a part of that too, with your generous contribution in the form of a class gift. Your decision to direct this towards the Center for Aging Research and Education, or as we know as CARE, in support of the Global Health Nursing Fund is fitting. We are preparing future nurse leaders who will meet the health needs of changing and aging populations. Most of you are familiar with CARE and its role in improving health and lives of aging adults and their caregivers. And you'll hear more about CARE tomorrow with presentations from its founding director, Dr. Barbara Bowers, and her successor, Dr. Barb King. While you may not be as familiar with the Global Health Nursing Fund, I know you recognize the benefit of providing nursing students opportunities to broaden their learning through immersion in diverse or unfamiliar populations and settings. This is not only critical to students' preparation to provide equitable care, it broadens their understanding of health needs around our world. You'll be happy to know that your identification of the Global Health Nursing Fund aligns with the priority of the school. This fund was selected as our targeted area of emphasis for the 2022 Fill the Hill campus campaign. So I thank you again for your generous support as individuals and as members of the class of 1972. I am sure I've reached the end of my time to welcome you, and I want to be sure that there's plenty of time for discussion. Thank you once again for joining this event, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have of me. So Linda, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Even though I have an opportunity to hear you on so many occasions, it's always wonderful because I always learn so many new things. I wonder if you might just share with the group, since you now have been our dean for 6 years, maybe just a little bit on what you found is the status of the school, albeit with a fabulous building, in other areas like faculty, research, numbers, and just share a little bit on what's been accomplished under your strategic direction in the last 6 years.
Oh, thank you for that, Linda. I think that I will answer that first speaking to our first strategic goal, which is to prepare nurses for the future of care. When I came, we at that time were admitting 152 students to our traditional baccalaureate program, the program that MJ is in. But we also were turning away more students than we could admit, almost 2/3. But we had capacity limits on that, so I increased that class to an admission cohort of 160, which is the max that I could do with it. We also saw that there were a large proportion of individuals who were applying to our traditional program who had bachelor's degrees or higher in other fields. So we implemented an accelerated second degree program in May of 2018, which now has a maximum cohort of 64 students. So those students complete their nursing degrees in 12 months. And then we've worked really hard to increase the number of students who are in our RN completion program, which is our online program that has been in place for more than 2 decades. We've done that. We've done that as well as increased the number of our students in our Doctor of Nursing Practice program, and we maintain our PhD program. So we went from an overall number of pre-nursing and nursing students in 700 to 800 to now we have about 1,150 students that are between our matriculated and non-matriculated students. from a faculty perspective, when I came, we had 13 tenure track faculty. With retirements, we are now at 21. My goal is to get us to a core of 30 by our centennial in 2024, and that's still absorbing any retirements that we have. Our clinical faculty have continued to grow, and I think we've increased our non-instructional staff by at least 25%. So we've continued to grow in that as well. Our partnerships, one of the ones that we wanted to establish that we had difficulty had to do with Epic. And now we do have formal relationship with Epic, and we provide them continuing education. And then in rural health, and I know this is probably a long-winded answer, but just in rural health alone, when I first came, I was told by the executive director of the Rural Health Cooperative that I was the first nursing dean who ever came to meet with them and had a real interest in enhancing and improving the rural nursing workforce. So we've continued that partnership along. So what I would say in summary is we are very proud of the UW-Madison School of Nursing. We have a long legacy and foundation to build on, and I've been able to leverage that to continue to excel and move us into the future. So like I said, a little bit longer of answer probably than needed, but I am very proud of where we've come over the past 6 years.
Dean Scott, could I ask a question?
Sure, Dorinda, please.
I'm wondering, having toured the building, which I think would be just a fabulous recruitment tool. I mean, I'm still awed by what a fantastic facility there is there. Do we try to make that facility known to prospective students? Or it sounds like we've got so many that we maybe don't want to advertise something like that. It's just such an unbelievable facility. I was so impressed with it.
Sure, Dorinda, that's a good question. Yes, for our undergraduate program, we don't have to actively recruit, but we still engage in recruitment because, again, we want to make sure that people, prospective students know about us. We want prospective students from diverse populations to know about us. So our academic affairs staff, in their recruitment activities, not only do they have brochures that they use, but we also have videos and tours that they can look at, and they can actually tour Cooper Hall. We also make that available for prospective faculty and staff. That was really important when we were in the 2 years of COVID and we weren't necessarily bringing people on site. We were able to share those materials so that they could get a sense of Cooper Hall without actually being it, but nothing takes the place of actually walking through the halls of Cooper Hall. So that part, I think we've done really well. And I would also say that Cooper Hall is also what helped us to continue to admit, progress, and graduate our students. Our simulation suite allowed us to continue clinical education when we could not have our students actually in clinical sites.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Ronnie or Nancy, any thoughts you have? And Kathy, I can't believe that you're being quiet.
There, I was trying to unmute myself, but you have to let me unmute myself.
Okay.
Dean Scott, I was at University of Tennessee Health Science Center. I was part of the founding group for our practice doctorate based on our faculty practice, and we had to go through, let's just say, many challenges within the academic area, practice partners, and the state legislature.
Mm-hmm.
But we were successful, you were successful, And one of the key things was looking at how that cadre of practice doctorates can impact and change our clinical education for our students as part of faculty, in addition to those who are not in practice. And can you talk a little bit about how you've worked with your practice doctorates and what you see and the long-reaching implications of that? Because that is another, what I saw is another revolution in how we were educating our nursing students and moving from master's prepared faculty to faculty with practice doctorate, particularly in our undergraduate programs.
Sure. So you may know, Ronnie, that we transitioned to the DNP for advanced practice we were doing our 5-year accreditation just when I came. So it must have been around 2011 that we were early adopters of the Doctor for Nursing practice. That's been in place. It has now been fully accredited for its 10-year period. Our clinical faculty are predominantly DNP prepared. We do still have master's prepared faculty, but we're probably more on the DNP prepared side than we are on the master's side. We are really looking at our Doctor of Nursing practice, both from the advanced practice role and the advanced nursing role. We implemented 2 non-direct care tracks a year or so ago, one in systems leadership and informatics and one in population health because of that gap. We have a formal academic practice partnership with UW Health. So we're really trying to look at how we can build on what we know from dedicated education units to being one that really looks more at the continuum of care and really partnering to have a clinical education lab across the continuum and across our sites. So I think that's going to be really important. I think the other thing that's going to be a major shift is the transition to competency-based education so that we move away from just more focus on the psychomotor skills, so a real emphasis, again, a greater emphasis on clinical judgment, competency attainment, and competency transition across populations. And I think that's where also the DNP will really help us in that transition as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nancy.
Hi, thank you, Dean Scott. Part of the reason I've been quiet is that's a goal of mine. It's not been working all that well, so thank you. At least it looked for a moment I was quiet. I have taken such interesting turns and used every bit of skill I ever learned in the school, but I've taken a direction into filmmaking and documentaries. And if you had something that you'd like to see visualized in video or in a movie format, what's missing out there, not only for training, but for the advanced practice person with the knowledge base like you have? What's missing? What could be improved?
Wow, that's a good question, Nancy.
You don't have to answer now, but it's really something I wondered, how can I really apply what I've been doing sort of on the side track to benefit the practice?
Sure. You know, we have another alum that Linda Prochi knows very well too. Her name is Mary Sue Heilman, and she's been in that space as well. And I think one of the things that that I would like to see happen is a different way that we think about the visibility of the profession. You know, we still fight all the stereotypes that go along with nursing. we start to, but yet we're still the most trusted profession. And
Wow.
we started to see a shift in that too with COVID, even though because of some of the politicization of it, nurses, the the image of also being a hero, and I'll just use that because that's not really the term that I want to use, but there was a focus on the power of nursing. What I would like to see built on is continuing that, so that we're not a second thought when we think about healthcare, that we get past the hierarchy between medicine and nursing, that we really focus on the interprofessional nature of nursing and our contributions. And so that it becomes where it's not a second thought about nurse leadership, that when we talk about it, people know what we mean when we say it. So that it's not about, oh, you're just a nurse kind of mentality kind of thing. So I think we need to kind of twist that lens so that people continue to view our profession differently. And Robert Wood Johnson did a survey a few years ago about the need to transform healthcare. And the first question says, do you believe that we need transformation in healthcare? And the answer was yes. And then the next question was, who do you think is most important to make that transformation happen? And of course they said nurses. And then they said, do you think we can make it happen? And the answer was they didn't think so, because of nurses not necessarily being at the table and being seen for the leaders that they are. That's the message that I think we need to change. So Nancy, I don't know if that helps, but that's off my top of my head response.
So the book that was written, doctors don't save patients, nurses do, but emphasized in maybe a different way, not so shocking, I don't know, but I appreciate the feedback, because it's been what I've been trying to figure out. What can I do with all this crazy stuff I do to really benefit the practice? And I think say thank you to the practice.
Yeah.
So giving it back, because it still amazes me every day.
Yeah.
When I don't throw things, I say, oh, it's my nurse's training, because I really want to throw things. I've never thrown a thing in my life, but I know that it's helped me to maintain calm where really none exists.
Well, and I think there were, I had conversations with some of your classmates last week too, about what their nursing education gave them, and therefore what they were able to give back, and really being able to describe the impact, and whether it was in the classroom or the boardroom or in the community or in hospice. I mean, those are the stories that we need to be able to share, and they're not one-offs. We're 4 million strong, and that's what we need to be able to speak to.
Thank you.
When I was at the football game, I talked with two people in the bathroom about the nursing. They were very interested in the fact that I was a nurse. They had gone on to a different school, and what they said had kept them from coming here was the fact that our curriculum had been split into the secondary and primary. And that scared them away. They felt that they wouldn't have a complete education if they found that they were put in a med-surg setting, or if they were put in a public health or community setting. And I was not in that split, but at the time, probably some of us here, I was involved in setting up how that would work in the next class. When is that split needing to be decided by the nursing student? And what is being done to help them understand that they would be qualified for many different types of nursing?
Okay. All right, Kathy, I'm going to try to see if I can answer that because first of all, there is no split between primary and secondary. So I'm not really sure what they're talking about. We are an upper division admit, so they do all of their prereqs and gen eds before they get admitted to the program. And then it's the traditional program is 4 semesters, fall, spring, fall, spring. Now it is true that for the baccalaureate degree is a generalist degree. So you do need to learn about public health and med surg and the care of children and the care of older adults. I mean, so, and those are also some are transferable principles. So if you know about growth and development, you should be able to transfer growth and development on the pediatric side and on the adult side. So I'm not really sure what their question was because that's not there. And then I know that a couple people have their hands up, and then I'll ask MJ. I mean, if she's willing to share what her perspective is. So Linda, and then Ronnie, and then I'd like to hear from MJ.
So Kathy, I also remember that after our class, I think it was actually in 1974, maybe, because Lori Benson was in that class. That curriculum was changed. And with the idea being that some people I'm making it simple, some people wanted to be in the hospital and some people wanted to be ambulatory.
Exactly.
And that was the primary care versus secondary care.
Okay.
And they did have to more or less choose for their clinicals were really directed in those areas.
Yeah.
Linda Scott will now have to ask somebody on her team, in case she's ever asked this question again, to find out when it was ended. I don't think it lasted very long for much the reason we're discussing, but Ronnie may know more because she stayed as faculty.
Yeah, Ronnie, please.
I'm really glad to hear that that was ended and that the classes, when you came to nursing, you got a smattering of everything as far as preparing you.
Yeah. So Ronnie, what were you going to say?
I think actually, Linda, they implemented that curriculum right after we graduated. So that would be the fall of 72. And there were some issues that all the resources were going to developing that new curriculum. And I think it only lasted about 5 years, but it was really the best thing since sliced bread as far as innovations in curriculum. And of course, since I like primary care, I thought, oh, this is wonderful. But yeah, it didn't last very long. And my impression was that was because the practice partners didn't necessarily know how to utilize the skills of these nurses. But it was also sort of the same issues that we had as baccalaureate graduates. We were, the round peg in the square, or was it the square peg in the round hole, that the practice settings were not in sync with what our education was, which is another one of those innovations from Wisconsin and being leaders. And that might be something for next year for that cohort of 50-year graduates to specifically address that issue of the curriculum changes and what was going on in the practice settings at that time.
Well, Jordan will take that down because Peggy Zimdars is the class of 1973, and I know she's going to be leading that group. MJ may not actually realize, and then we want to hear from her about what it's like now. But when we graduated 50 years ago, this is going to be shocking to you, less than 5% of nurses were bachelor's prepared. So to Ronnie's point, you went to work in a hospital and we didn't have the same technical skills as the people who graduated from the hospital school. But truly, in a few months, it didn't make any difference at all. And then we zoomed ahead with our critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And in fact, the longitudinal studies looking at the practice competencies of different educational preparation, when you looked at how they were functioning on the floor, the diploma graduates were higher than the baccalaureate, but over time, their trajectory of clinical decision-making went down and stabilized, and the baccalaureate grads just kept getting better and better and better. But of course, not that many people were reading that literature, and the whole issue at that time of the need for baccalaureate preparation. And as an aside, my dad assumed all nurses had baccalaureate degrees. And he was shocked to find out that they didn't. And that's because my aunt had a bachelor's in nursing in the early 50s from Marquette University.
Mm.
So of course you would go get your baccalaureate degree, whereas all of your career counseling was, oh, you need to go to this hospital-based school.
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks, Ronnie. So MJ, do you want any thoughts you'd like to share?
Absolutely. I love the nursing school so much, so I will always talk about it. I really do like how the nursing school is set up currently, and the fact that, you know, that general background is what we get, because I kind of feel like that, my goodness, that prepares us to be more than adequate and sufficient nurses when we graduate. I know a couple of friends who, you know, coming from no nursing experience, went straight into like an ICU and things like that because they felt like the School of Nursing had prepared them to do that. Yes, definitely there is a learning curve after graduation, but you know, the School of Nursing has done a really great job of preparing us to be able to handle that and to be able to navigate that. It's just like Dean Scott was saying a little earlier about how all of our prereqs, you know, like human development and family studies and things like that, we should be able to apply those to our practice, which is something that I adore about how our curriculum is currently set up, just because it reinforces the idea that we're always lifelong learners, sorry, and that we're always focusing and learning and trying to better not only ourselves, but also our practice. Hopefully that answered the question.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. Oh, Ronnie.
Mute. And in fact, that really goes with the experience with clinical teaching, because students come in thinking, oh, I need to have worked as a nursing assistant, and that will just really help me so much. And actually, those were the most challenging students to deal with because they were used to doing rather than thinking. And so they had to totally unlearn their gut reactions on doing things, wipe that away, and then learn how to think as a nurse and the critical thinking and the decision making. So you have just said a really wonderful testimony to that. And I would much rather have had students who had absolutely no clinical experience, because they're a tabula rasa. And it was easier for them. I mean, it's not easy, but it was easier in comparison. They didn't have to unlearn and then learn a new skill.
Yeah.
And they were intimidating to the other students because they had the psychomotor skills. And everybody thought, oh, you know, they're so much better. They can do blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't see the thinking that was involved.
Yeah.
Scott, I'm wondering if you want to just touch on our really exciting agreement we signed with Madison College.
Sure. Thanks, Jordan. As I mentioned before, we have our RN completion program, which is what we call the BSN at home. One of the things, as we're really looking at the need to, again, increase access to baccalaureate education, we had spent a number of years trying to look at how we could partner with Madison College. And after some changes in leadership, we finally were able to get past some of the barriers that were in our way. And so this past May, we formally signed our our matriculation agreement between the two, so that students can actually start with some intentional advising while they're still students at Madison College early in their program. We're doing joint advising. They also sign an intent to enroll so that we can actually do a smooth transfer from their associate degree program into our BSN at home. And there is even a couple of courses that they can take prior to graduation at Madison College. So we're really excited about that. It said it went in place this May. Last I talked to our advising team, there were at least 10 who were interested, who have already signed an intent. So we're going to do that. The second thing that I will say that's in partnership with that is that UW Health is also trying to look at how they can increase their pathways from the CNA to the ADN to the baccalaureate. So they also receive some philanthropic funds to start a cohort of around 40 students who they would help support as CNAs to get their associate degree, and then would actually then come into our BSN at home program. And then that increases the educational preparation for their staff. And it also provides an educational pathway for individuals who otherwise may not have had an opportunity to seek college education, that they could move beyond the nursing assistant role. So we're really excited about that. We're hoping that the first cohort will be in place in January for that program. Linda.
Just curious, as you mentioned, you came to our school and there were only 13 tenure level faculty members.
Mhm.
It would seem to me to be quite difficult to be ranked very well nationally. If you only have 13 faculty members, how many research dollars can they generate?
Mhm.
And then the second part would be, so how did you manage that? How did you increase those numbers?
Okay. Well, very creatively, number one. I negotiated for a couple faculty lines when I came, so to get campus resources for that. And then I also wrote a couple compelling proposals to campus, including doing the analysis of what, as a research one, School of Nursing, what our ranking should be. So I compared where we were to where our peers were at that time. We were into upper 60s ranked in NIH funding. And you can't do research if you're trying to still continue your academic and service mission. So you've got to figure out how to do that. It was a compelling enough case that the campus said, what would you need to move this faster? And as a result, I received funding to where they supported one full position and then a half a position each year for 5 years. So we have that. I also, a part of that proposal, wrote for a postdoctoral pathway program so that I could sort of grow our own. We could identify individuals who wanted to complete a postdoctoral fellowship. And so essentially they could do a 1 to 3 year interview with us. We only put people in there that we knew or were pretty confident that would move into a tenure track position. Since that's been in place, we have now transitioned 4 postdoctoral fellows into assistant professor roles, and we have 2 more postdocs that just started this year. So we're doing that. And then what people tell me is that they know about University of Wisconsin and that I continue to increase the visibility of the school. So we even in a very competitive market, we still receive a number of applications. So I think that's really, I try to take advantage of every opportunity I can to garner additional resources so we don't, so I can hire over here and use our resources over here, bring them together to make sure that that can happen.
And I guess the final thing is that you could just, I think I know the number, but you could tell us the number on where we are presently ranked, because we really did move forward.
Yes.
Through your creativity.
Yeah. So now in the research front, we're ranked at 48. So we're moving. Our goal is to try to at least to break that top 30. That's my first goal. But I will also say that our academic programs too are nationally ranked, and our undergraduate program out of 684 programs, I believe was this last year, we're 22nd. We're 17th in pub, so that's all public and private, 17 in public, and #1 in the state for our undergraduate programs. And then our DMP programs are nationally ranked as too. Yeah. So we're going to continue to move that needle forward too.
Dean Scott, I know we've kept you a little bit longer than I had promised for questions, so I
Okay.
appreciate that additional time. Does anyone have another question before we shift gears to kind of wrap up with some social time?
Yeah, Ronnie.
It was great learning about the organizational changes that you made to enable you to move forward with your practice and research programs. When I was on faculty as an assistant professor from 81 to 85, that was the time where there was a limited number of tenure slots. And Barb Bowers was one of the few people that was able to get tenured, because you basically had to have 2 NIH grants as an assistant professor to get tenured. And there was so many politics around that, and the UW campus was known for taking in huge numbers of assistant professors, and basically you were the workhorses in the undergrad programs, and then people went elsewhere for successful careers just because of those dynamics that you were talking about. And that's why I left, and then was very successful in my second landing. And so it was really wonderful to hear how you were able to leverage different levels in order to make those institutional and organizational changes. So the College of Nursing, School of Nursing could continue to move forward and to continue to be a leader in that trajectory, that you really have that foundation. So chapeau, for being able to accomplish that. That's incredible.
And you know, with the funding landscape, the way that it is, that would be totally unrealistic.
Right.
To, you know, so that's #1. And then #2 is, and especially as a health services researcher, you know, NIH doesn't necessarily fund my research. It was more on the ARC side or other places. So again, unrealistic to hold people to that. But in order to have a research enterprise as a Research One institution, it is the strength of the programs of research and how and being sustainable are the things that I really focus on. And we have some talented, very talented assistant professors that I am so excited about the future of their work, the impact that they'll make, and how they'll help the school to continue to progress. So,
and we actually then were able to reconceptualize scholarship, that you had scholarship practice for the BNPs, and then the traditional scholarship with the PhDs.
Right,
And that opened up a lot more possibilities for how we could grow.
right. And the collaboration between the two, you know?
Exactly.
So that our PhD faculty generate the evidence, our DNP faculty help to translate it and put it into practice. So, I mean, that's the ideal synergy that needs to happen. And so being a part of teams together.
Do you have a joint, as we had a joint DNP PhD program or PhD DNP program, any, is that even a possibility on campus?
So what we're looking at, we just completed our 10-year self-study and review of the PhD program. And one of the recommendations out of that, along with doing a gap analysis, AACN just revised its 2010 excellence in research focused doctoral programs. So there's a 22 now version of that. And so we're doing the gap analysis with that. And one of the recommendations between the gap analysis and our self-study was to look at a DNP to PhD bridge. So we're not necessarily going back from PhD to DNP, but DNP to PhD is where we will prioritize.
Wonderful.
So with that,
Oh, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there.
oh no, I was just going to say again, it's my pleasure to be here. And as I mentioned earlier, it's always a pleasure to talk to our alums. So please, if you think of things, questions that you have, any follow-up you want, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation anytime.